Welcome to Student of the Game podcast, where we help you master the fundamentals, fall in love with practice, and win at the game of life. I'm your host, Brad Noll. Welcome to the classroom. Welcome back to another episode of Student of the Game. I'm excited today. We're here with somebody who's a new friend of mine, but I feel like we've been friends for a long time. Aaron Lane, welcome to the show.
Indeed, man. I'm glad to be here. Appreciate you having me.
Well, you and your wife are a big deal in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I don't know who's a bigger deal, you or your wife, but we got you on the podcast, which probably means she's busy today doing work, and you're over here hanging out with me. So a little background on Aaron. Aaron is a co-founder of Courageous Healing, has a bachelor's degree from Purdue University in Law and Society with a minor in OLS, which is Organizational Leadership and Supervision. In addition, also holds a master's degree in OLS from Indiana Tech. And if that wasn't enough, ladies and gentlemen, holds a second master's degree in clinical social work from Indiana University. My man, just talent. What? Yeah, exactly. Tell us how you got into the field that you're in. Like, what was your background? How you grew up, and what attracted you to this?
Yeah, so man, I was a young man with the dream of making it to the highest level in sports. Growing up, I didn't have much going on inside the home. My mother was someone who worked 16-hour shifts, so she worked all day. My dad was someone who I like to call it present but not present, meaning he worked, he came home. We didn't have much of a emotional or relational connection at all. So I spent a lot of time at friends' homes, at school, in youth sports. So a lot of my time was just being active. So I ended up developing and using my athletic abilities. So all the gifts that God blessed me with. So I was a 3-sport athlete, ran track, played basketball, and football was my sport. So just getting involved with those things at a young age kept me involved and kept me active. So play sports all through school. And that was kind of, I like to tell people, that was kind of my identity. That's where I placed my identity, if you will. I was someone who was pretty athletic growing up. So I got a lot of recognition through sports, and that affirmation that I lacked in the home due to, the absentee of parents for different reasons, was what kind of grounded me, if you will. So
was that, I got a question, not to interrupt your story,
yeah.
but was that a healthy identity in sports, or was it unhealthy? Like, were you chasing that so hard? Like, because there's people listening right here that, like, this is not a sports podcast, but people are like, man, you have so many great athletes on your podcast, Brad. Tell me about your pursuit of it. Was it a healthy pursuit of athletics?
That's a great question. I think due to my natural ability, athletics was something that came easy to me. However, from an identity standpoint, it was definitely unhealthy. Because the affirmation and the constant praise, the things that came along with it, became things that I relied on in order to feel accepted, in order to feel like I had value, right? Because it didn't come much from the home. Obviously, I knew my parents loved me. I knew they were, wanting the best for me. However, because of their busy lives, I didn't always get that from home. So getting it from outside the home is what fed me and kept me going. So I definitely would say that it was unhealthy. However, me having the athletic ability carried me into playing, at a very high level in high school. Got a full ride scholarship to St. Francis University here in Fort Wayne, where I'm born and raised. So I got to go to college and be around family and friends, and continue playing the game that I love. However, that also meant that I was still in the environment that I was born and raised, right? So that meant hanging around some individuals that may not have been the healthiest for me, may that be friends or family. So I realized quickly that I needed to make a shift. And that shift meant I needed to get out of Fort Wayne, just for my benefit, for new opportunities, to see different things that the world had to offer. So I didn't go too far away, but I left St. Francis about a year and a half in, and I went to Purdue University in West Lafayette, where actually it was kind of a walk of faith, if you will, because I left a full ride scholarship and walked on at Purdue. That's
Wow.
how intense it was, or how bad it was, that I needed to, like, separate myself from my comfort.
Okay, so time out, because there's people right here, and I've been in this before. There's people right now in a job that their money's good, right? They enjoy where they're at, they're comfortable, but they don't know that they're drifting. Man, your story is so like, What I love about this podcast is talking to people and then being able to connect the listener to say your story's probably no different. I've been in business situations before where a client was a really good client financially, but was horrible for our mental health, was horrible for my family balance, like trying to be home with the kids. And you just said you left a
Mhm.
financially better situation to go and push yourself to be around people that will really push you and get you out of your comfort zone for not the same financial rate. Is that true?
100%. 100%. It was completely a walk of faith. I had no idea what I was walking into. I had a cousin who was actually playing at Purdue at the time, Bernard Pollard, and he was a pretty good athlete himself, kind of a star safety there. And some other friends from Fort Wayne, Anthony Spencer was there as well. And I kind of reached out to them and was like, "Hey, what do you guys think about this move I'm considering making?" And there was no promises made, but they were like, "We'll do our part in talking to a few individuals." And they did that, and I went down during the summer and worked out. And I'll get to that part of the story in a moment. However, I do want to talk a little bit about getting outside of your comfort zone, right?
Mm.
Because that's what I had to do. Is I literally had to take the leap of faith, which meant I had to stretch, right? I had to get out of my comfort zone, what I was familiar with, and do something different. I had so many friends and family members who were phenomenal, phenomenal athletes. I'm talking guys that jump 40-inch verticals rolling out of the bed, right? Run 4.3 40s without stretching type athletic ability. However, because they were stuck in their environments and stuck in what was familiar with them, they didn't maximize their athletic ability. And I didn't want to be that guy. I knew again, I had the dream of playing at the highest level. So I was willing to do whatever it took to do that. And if that meant me doing something different than what I've seen before, I was willing to take that risk and bet on myself for sure. So I ended up going to Purdue, as I mentioned, and I worked out during the summer with the team and some of the guys and some of the coaches. Got to kind of see me train and work out. So they allowed me to come on the team as a preferred walk on during that spring season, if you will, during that springtime. I was playing scout team running back, just kind of doing everything that I needed to do in order to prove that I belong there.
Which, by the way,
Um,
no kids would sign up for this today. All the kids want to sign up for. I want a Division I offer. I want a full ride scholarship. I don't want to be on the practice team. I want to play right away. And you realize success is a process. And this could be a whole podcast of how you at a young age were mature enough to see that. But keep going. So you're on a scout team. I just hope the high school athletes are listening to this right now that you don't get to land on third base. Like you got to go all the way around. Keep going.
100%. And honestly, I didn't even realize it from a maturity standpoint at that time. I just knew I wanted something different. I had a I had this chip on my shoulder, if you will, that I could play at that level as well.
What
So a part of a
What
part
do
of
you
it
what
was
do,
that.
what do you think? A lot of people listen. Okay, so what do you think? Do you think because everybody's in your shoes right now, and the question I'm about to ask you, everybody can see themselves in your shoes. Do you think you were running towards something, or were you running away from something? Which one was a stronger feeling for you at that time? Were you running away from something, or were you running to a better life?
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say that I was running to a better life that I knew would Yeah, I would say I was running to a better life that I knew would set me up in a way to be better off for where I came from, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
There were so many individuals. Actually, while I was at Purdue, my mom ended up they found a cancerous tumor in her leg. She also had got laid off from her job at that time. There was different things happening when I was transitioning from St. Francis to Purdue that I knew if I take this opportunity and I maximize it, what it could potentially do for my family. There was no guarantees, but again, I was willing to bet on myself because if I would have stayed where I was, the chances of the opportunities were much less. So for me, I was willing to take that leap of faith and maximize. I had the chip on my shoulder and the mindset that once I got to Purdue, that no one will outwork me, no one will want it better than me. And
Hmm.
that was kind of the mentality and the mindset that I went into Purdue with. So as I'm playing scout team running back, and I tell people this all the time, it was kind of crazy. Like I did very well at scout team running back, right? That was my niche, if you will. I was a running back all through high school, did very well. So playing running back was something that came natural to me with instincts and vision and all those things. So I'm playing against guys who were all conference, all American, projected first round, second round, NFL draft picks every day. And I was doing well. I was making plays and I was doing things. However, at the same time, because I was a walk on, there was a lot of guys who were on scholarship, that were scholarship running backs, right? And when you get to that level, just like with the NFL, even more so, it becomes a business also, right? It's not necessarily always about talent. It becomes about system. It becomes about business. So because they had invested in several guys, a coach approached me one day and was like, hey, you have all the skills needed to play running back, right? However, because we have certain people in certain positions, the likelihood of you playing at this position is low. However, we have a need at defensive back, at corner. And he was like, you have the speed, you have the instincts, all those things, you could naturally transition. And I had never played this position in my life. So this is another leap of faith for me.
We have
Right.
people on our team that just this year we've asked them to fulfill new roles. You're talking about a new role, like in business. If somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to give you a promotion, but it's going to be different than what you've done before," like how open are you to this? First of all, this conversation today with Aaron is going to be about mental health. It's going to be about nonprofits. It's going to be about the beautiful work that him and his wife are doing in this community. But you kind of need to know the backstory before you can appreciate the glow up, right? Like not everybody appreciates the glow up. And you're about to talk about this transition in your life right now. So I'm sorry, but keep going because these listeners, they gotta connect the dots, man. Being a student of the game means you can connect the dots. You can learn from somebody else, whether it's a mistake or whether it's, their glow up. And how does that affect you in your life? So, all right. So coach calls you and says, I got this new position for you because all these guys that are paid on scholarship, they don't want to lose their job. And we can't put you in that spot. That's not a good return on our investment right now, is to sit all these guys that are getting paid to be here. And now here you are switching to defense.
Yep. And again, like you said, this was one of those things where it's like, this is your opportunity, right? How are you going to maximize it? I can either complain about it, I can say, hey, woe is me, all these things, or I can rise to the occasion and answer the call that was given to me. So for me, again, with this chip on my shoulder of like, hey, I'm here, I might as well go all in and maximize it. So I just started to learn the playbook, learn the system. It came natural to me from an athletic ability, so I was able to actually pick up on things pretty well and pretty easily at the position. And the way God works is so amazing because I was obedient in answering the call and just making the transition. I wish harm on no one, but we ended up having one of our DBs go down due to some recurring injuries that he was facing. And it was time for me to answer the call. I ended up stepping into a starting position. I ended up getting, spring newcomer of the spring season at the defensive back position. Got put on a full ride scholarship. All those things started to happen to me just for me walking into something that was different without knowing, but just fully walking into it, knowing that it was an opportunity that I needed to maximize, and it worked out well for me. So to kind of move the story along, play well, suffer some injuries and different things of that nature. Fast forward to I graduate with a degree. I go free agent to the Miami Dolphins due to some many different individuals believing in me. Eugene Parker, which I'll talk about probably a little later on in the podcast, who was my agent, got me a workout with the Miami Dolphins. They ended up signing me free agent. Was in rookie mini camp. Was there for about 3-4 days in rookie mini camp until I got released. So it was a great experience. I can say I made it to the highest level, right? Even though it was
Absolutely.
like,
There was a
even
piece
though
of
it was
paper with your signature on it at the high.
100%.
So this is the question my son had. I know some professional basketball players. I said I know some minor league baseball players. I said I really don't know any professional football players. So he said, how close were you to the NFL? And I think you just answered that. You had a signed contract, whether it was a day or 1,000 days or a million days. You had a signed contract in the NFL.
Yes, I did. And here's what's interesting, because I like to tell people, and obviously the podcast is about business, right?
Mm-hmm.
The NFL, once you get to that level, it goes from being about talent to system,
Mm.
business, right? The money,
Mm-hmm.
all those things and how those things work out. Because once you get to that level, everybody's fast,
Mm.
everybody's strong, everybody knows football. So you're competing at the highest level. So when I actually got with Miami, I was running with the ones. If you look from a depth chart standpoint, I was running with the ones. So I'm going against, drafted receivers, and I'm playing against the first team. And I was actually doing really well. However, at the time when I went free agent, Miami was in the middle of coaching changes. So it's at the time where Tony Sperano and Todd Bowles and all of them were coming over from Dallas, the Dallas Cowboys. And they all came over to Miami, but they brought some players with them. So they brought a gentleman that specialized in nickelback or slot corner, which is what they were kind of looking at me to play. And when they brought him over, the easiest thing to do was to plug him in and get rid of the free agent guy, right? So they ended up releasing me. They told me, I had talent. I could definitely play in this league, all those things, which was great to hear. However, my time came to an end with the Dolphins. So when I got back home after I was released, I played arena ball for a couple of years here in Fort Wayne for the Fort Wayne Freedom and the Firehawks.
So you took this sports career, because I want to get into the business of what you guys do, but so you took this let's just say non-conventional route to athletic, and you had to, like, you were kind of at the bottom every time, right? Like, you're the guy that had to eat last in the line because the scholarship players would go first. You were the guy that had to carry the bags. You were the guy that had to be the practice player. You had to wear the off jersey, right? The, hey, don't hit the quarterback, and you probably were told no a lot. I got to imagine that as we transition into this conversation about business and nonprofits and philanthropic work that you guys do, like, guess what? When you're in the nonprofit space, everybody's asking for money. When you're in the real estate space like us, everybody's asking if you want to buy a new home, right? Like, you get to the certain point of becoming a professional, and a professional gets this is what we say: amateurs get paid to play, professionals get paid to practice. If you're a true pro, then you're getting paid to practice. You're getting paid to work on your craft every single day. I want to talk about what you and your wife have done in this community. And obviously, now knowing your backstory, I know that there's a lot of gas in the tank. I know not to mess with the lanes when it comes to who's going to outlast the competition. I know, you guys are going somewhere, and you already have this amazing business. But let's talk about Courageous Healing for a little bit. How did that get started? And talk about the work you and your wife do.
Yeah. Courageous Healing is a nonprofit organization. It's a 501c3, culturally centered, trauma informed mental health organization that focuses on serving underserved populations, located in what we believe is the heart of the city, Southeast Fort Wayne, where we're born and raised. We intentionally specialize in Black and Brown populations. However, we serve everyone. However, we also know that the stigma around mental health and access and cost and all those things are a barrier to Black and Brown people receiving services. So it's important to us, one, to provide healing for individuals who look like us, but also to provide a space that they feel seen, heard, and they feel safe. That's to come to in order to destigmatize mental health and what has been represented as over the years. I also want to say, when you talk about practice, right? And talk about my journey that I took, I like to also tell people that sports for me was practice for where I'm currently am in my life, because all the tools, all the adversity that I had to face, the tenacity that I had to have, the long suffering that I had to endure, all those things have prepared me for the seasons of life that I've had to go through, that Janelle and I have had to go through in navigating, getting a nonprofit started and off the ground, being told no by certain funders in different opportunities. I would say sports is the thing that has set me up and has taught me how to endure in all seasons of life, for sure.
Time out. Student of the Game is brought to you by Noll Team Real Estate. Our mission is to eradicate mediocre real estate transactions. On your largest financial purchase, you shouldn't have to deal with average. We do this by helping you save time, reduce your stress, and helping you keep as much money in your pocket as we can. You can help us out by introducing us to your friends or family who want to make confident real estate decisions, whether buying, selling, building, or investing. At Noll Team Real Estate, we are connected to a group of realtors who sell 1 in every 8 homes in North America. If you know someone moving out of your area, there's a great chance we can connect them to somebody we know, like, and trust. Remember, relationships win. Now back to the show. I try to do some stats. I always say preparation creates separation. I try to prepare for you being on this podcast, man. And I'll never do a good enough job as hearing it right from your mouth of what you guys are doing, especially in the Southeast side. But the little research that I did, right, it said that 1 in 5 live with a mental illness. 1 in 5 live with a mental illness. So 20% of people live with this. 46% of white Americans with mental illnesses receive services. 30% of black receive services and 27% of Hispanic. The numbers that I was researching says that 50% more white people receive services than black. And you are saying you're serving a need for those that don't have access, don't have ability, may not even know that it's out there. What to me, okay, if you're running a business right now, here's what you and Janelle have done: identify a problem and go solve it. And then be the best in the world at solving that problem. And that's what you guys are doing. Let's talk before we get into the practice and like all the behind the scenes stuff. What do you think the fundamentals are of running a nonprofit? Like what are some things that are just the truth? Like the strategies and tactics we say change, but the fundamentals will never change. What are fundamental to you running a nonprofit, especially in the mental health space?
Yeah, I would say again, it's the little things. It's having the right people in the right seats, doing the right
Mm,
work. We follow a lot of the EOS model, which is the entrepreneur operating system. Some people are familiar with traction, so we follow a lot of that model. However, it's just what you say, right? We see a problem, we have the ability to see a need and address a need is
mm,
what we like to say. Our skill sets and our strengths are Janelle is a detail and strategy person, and I'm a visionary. So a lot of times I'm casting vision or I'm seeing things or I have innovative or unique ways to approach a situation or a problem. And then she's the one who goes behind and makes it all come to fruition by thinking about how we go about implementing things. And then we surround ourselves with great people, people who have skills that are different than ours, but understand the mission that we're on. So for me, a lot of it is just about making sure that you have the right people who believe in the vision that God has given you, because obviously God gave us the vision of bringing courageous healing to fruition and stewarding over it. However, in order to run a successful business or a successful nonprofit, you have to have individuals who are willing to buy into a vision that was given to you, and the way that you do that is you bring them in to where they feel a part of that vision,
man.
right? We like to say we do things with people, not to or for people.
Mm.
So as long as we keep that mindset of doing things with people and keeping people involved and make them feel valued, seen, and heard, and truly believe that and truly operate in that, I think those are the things that help us be successful and have helped us get to where we are today for sure.
I'm gonna jump on the soapbox with you and just scream from the mountaintop because you said what I heard is people and systems are fundamental. You and I, like, our recent friendship, we didn't know, but our businesses are almost identical, right? Like our
Yeah.
businesses, like we come alongside people when they're going through some type of lifestyle change. And we talk about in real estate, when people move, they go through two different stresses, two big stresses. The stress number one is the reason in which they have to move. And stress number two is actually the move itself, packing the boxes,
Yep.
having the money, right? You know, and so we come alongside people and we want to be introduced to people going through lifestyle changes. And you guys are similar in terms of it's people and it's systems. Well, for us, it's the same thing. You know, I'm the visionary and I've got my team that's integrating, you know, that's EOS language. I highly recommend people to check out EOS, especially small business
Mhm.
owners are trying to run meetings and you're wearing a bunch of different hats. My team tells me as the visionary, my job is to have 10 ideas. Their job is to throw out nine and pick the one that works
Yep.
and try to optimize that. So, people and systems, I totally agree are fundamentals. Let's get into the behind the scenes. What do you guys do? And I love your organizational guy, OLS guy. So, talk about the
Mhm.
micro, meso, and macro levels in which you impact change at Courageous Healing.
Yeah, and that's the entire reason why I got into social work as a whole. So initially, my entire being was to advocate for people, right? I feel like my purpose was to empower people, to advocate for change at the highest levels, within the systemic nature of things. So, at the city level, with at the state level, federal level, and whatever needed to be done. However, I also believe I do a disservice by advocating at that level, getting information and not bringing it back down to the ground level, which is where the individuals are, right? At the micro level. So when we talk about the micro, meso, and macro level, what we're talking about is the micro level is when you're talking about individuals, family systems. And then at the meso level, you're talking more community based boards, advisories, committees, working within that system. And then the macro level is when we're talking about the systemic nature, the
Mm.
city. state level and so forth. So for us, we get an opportunity to work at all three levels, and we take pride in that. Many people look at us like, why are you guys trying to do so much? You can't do all things. Well, that's not our goal. And we definitely don't set out to do that because we're busy, we're busy enough. However, if we sit in an office, closed door with individuals, and we hear about all the systemic barriers that they're facing and things that are keeping them from thriving in life, and we sit in that office and just hold that information and not go out and fight for changes on the things that we know will help in their healing process, we feel like we're doing them a disservice. So we sit on boards and committees and advocate for what we believe we hear about often, behind closed doors. And then we also, if we have an opportunity, we do go out and we work at the state level. Like we do work with the Department of Mental Health and Addictions. We worked with, some state representatives and things like that in order to address these issues that we know to be prevalent within the mental health community.
Wow. So, okay. Micro, meso, macro. There. First of all, that's the first time I've heard it arranged that way, which is amazing. I'm gonna swipe that if you don't mind. Swipe for those that are listening to this podcast. If you want to swipe something, swipe stands for steal with integrity. Practically everything. So I'm gonna swipe that, but I'm gonna give you credit when I complete. People and systems need to be in the micro level. People and systems need to be in the meso level, and people and systems need to be at the macro level. So if you heard anything on what Aaron was talking about, you may not be in the nonprofit space. You may not be in the medical space. You may not be in the mental health space. You may, print shirts for a living. You may be an accountant for a living, but there's people and systems at every single level. And a lot of people want to grow, right? You look at two visionaries here on this podcast, you're listening to two visionaries, and grow is kind of in our DNA. It's our nature. It's continue to work and grow. But you got to master the fundamentals of all these levels. There's a sequence to this. You can't skip the sequence just because you have this big vision of being internationally known or nationally known, or you got to get it right at the ground level first. So talk about, what are at the micro level, what are the needs of our community right now? What are the majority of people coming in to talk to you guys when it relates to, their mindset, their mental health, their illnesses that they're struggling with at the micro level? What are you seeing right now?
Yeah, and I think it's across the board. I think it's multifaceted. I mean, you have everything from anxiety, depression, systemic racism issues to just being burnt out and tired from work. The impacts of COVID are still impacting individuals. So I think it's parenting, grief. I mean, you name it. Individuals are walking into our offices with these issues on a daily basis. So I don't think that it's one thing. However, I think that we must look at the problems that we are seeing from a multifaceted view, if you will. We look at it from a individual healing standpoint, but then we also have to, again, as we talk about the three levels, yes, the individual needs to heal. But as the individual heals, if we send them right back out into an environment that is not set up for them to succeed or to continue thriving, then we just put them right back into a place of suffering or needing to continue their healing journey when they may be ready to move forward. So we have to also make sure not just the individual's healing, but how do we make sure that our community's healing? And what I mean by that is how do we make sure that when we talk about development, when we talk about access to resources, when we talk about just the thriving nature of Fort Wayne right now and how everything's thriving, make sure that every part of our community is thriving so that everybody in our community can thrive, I think is key and important.
We when you're talking, it reminds me of when we were doing conditioning. We'd have what we call the last man race, where it's like, all the guys on the team, those 10, 12, 14 of us, we would go and run. And then the guy in the back would have to sprint to the front of the line. And then we would all keep jogging together. Then the next guy in the back would have to sprint to the front of the line. And the guy wouldn't be able to go until the last man got up to the front. And to me, like that's just a great picture or snapshot of community. Like we're all running this together, and whoever's last needs to come up to the front of the line and have access to the information, have access to the resources like you guys do. In my limited research, and I do not plan to coach people through mental illness and what they're struggling with, but I just was kind of looking up top tips for coping with mental illness and mental health. So you tell me if I'm on the same path, because we want to give listeners here, we want to give them a snapshot into what you do, but we also want to give them some tips too. But if you're dealing with mental health issues, top 10 tips: seek professional help. Number one, seek professional help. I want to say something that you said and you glossed over, but this is real. You said with. You do life with people. You don't do it at them. You don't do it to them. You don't do it for them. You do it with people.
Yeah.
If you're a business right now and you've been stressed out, like it's tax season, I bet the accountants are like, oh man, my clients aren't turning in their paperwork until the last minute. Realtors, oh, these people are looking at so many houses or they won't lower their price. Every industry has challenges and frustrations. When you can
Mhm.
change your mindset, and I can honestly say I've changed my mindset on this. When you can change your mindset to understand you're doing life with people, you're doing life with your clients, it changes from a salesperson to a service. My mission, my ministry is to serve other people. My mission in life is to help others win. And my encouragement is that's where you need to start. Start by helping other people win. So if you're going through some mental health issues, seek professional help, especially Courageous Healing. I'm gonna give you a shout out. Courageous Healing, they're going to do it with you. They're not going to do it to you. They're not going to do it for you. They're going to do it with you. Amen to that. Number 2, establish a routine. Number 3, stay active. Eat a balanced diet. Number 5, get enough sleep. Number 6, limit alcohol and avoid drugs. 7, practice mindfulness, relaxation techniques. 8, connect with others. Man, you know that relationships win on this podcast. Number 9, set realistic goals. And 10, limit screen time and social media. Anything you want to add to that? I mean, that's kind of the top tips if you're going through something. Number 1 is to seek a pro, seek a coach. We're athletes, right? If you want to get better, you got to have a coach. That's what courageous healing is, the coach for mental illness right now. If you want your mental health to improve, hire a coach. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that's on that list, 100%. And I think, again, being biased, I would say getting therapy, getting counseling is the number one thing, which is what you read off first. I think it can be intimidating and it can be scary because people don't know what to expect. And we like to tell individuals, you don't have to know what to expect when you come to therapy. You're coming to get a checkup or a tune up, just like when you go to the doctor. And our job as therapists are to get to know you, to hear your story, to help you make connections, to see patterns, to see cycles that are continuing, things that may be generational, right? And then as we start to learn you and build rapport with you, things will naturally come up that you may be dealing with or that you need to talk about. There are some individuals who come into therapy who know exactly what they need or what they want to talk about. And that's great too. But it doesn't have to be a scary process. The first step is just one, identifying and saying, okay, it's okay not to be okay, right? I don't have to be strong. I don't have to have it all together. I don't have to put on this face and look like I'm, on top of my game all the time. I'm not doing okay. And I need to go process and talk with someone where I can be vulnerable and I can be safe, and know that I'm safe and where it's confidential. Right. And that's what therapy can provide for you. I like to tell everybody that I work with, and I work with a lot of young boys and men, that this is an hour of time that's all about you. This is an hour of time where you get to process and talk about anything that's on your mind or your heart in a confidential and safe space. A lot of people don't like to come to therapy because they feel like, I don't want anybody knowing my business, or are they going to talk about me? The reason why people go to the doctor and they don't worry about it is because their doctors and nurses are bound by HIPAA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing for licensed practitioners and licensed therapists. We're bound by HIPAA. So anything that's talked about in therapy is confidential. So I think that's important for individuals to understand, so that that's no longer a barrier or a stigma around getting the help that you need.
This is going to resonate with athletes, maybe even people that are just fitness junkies. But I believe, I believe that most people work out their bodies. Like I'm
Mhm.
going to put it on my calendar. Yeah, ride my bike, go on a walk, lift weights, go swimming. Right. I'm going to put that on my calendar. How often do we put on our calendars to work out our mind? Right. Like one of my buddies who podcasts, he says the body has limits, but the mind is limitless. If you think about that, the only reason you don't believe that, you the listener right now, you don't believe that the mind is limitless is because there's road construction in your mind. Your mind has road construction and you've got to take a detour, and that's all you're seeing. That's all you have the capacity for. But when you work with a therapist and a counselor, and you try to, let that construction go to work and build that bridge, now your mind is limitless. And right now, if you're stuck, that's okay. A lot of people are stuck. But you have road
Mhm.
construction in your mind. You got to clean that up. And by cleaning it up, you go see a coach. And by seeing a coach, now you built that bridge. And now I'm back again. Remember, most of us plan our workouts physically, But what about our workouts mentally? I got space in my calendar, and I'll show it to you if anybody wants to look. Usually on Mondays from 12 to 1, it's called the Mind Gym. I go to the Mind Gym and I work out my mind. I work on myself. In the morning, I journal, I read, I look at my affirmations. I'm working out my mind so that I can
Mhm.
go give that away to other people throughout the day.
People have to understand that the mind body connection is real,
Mm,
right? There are people who have been going to doctors for years with the same chronic issues and same problems that continue to perpetuate over and over and over again. And they can't understand why they can't get these issues resolved because it may not be just a physical issue, right? Sometimes our trauma and our mental issues manifest physically, right? There's an entire book out there, and I can't remember the author, but the title of it is The Body Keeps the Score.
mm.
It's all about how trauma gets stored in the body. So sometimes you may be thinking you're having a physical issue when really it's mental, which is now why a lot of doctors and nurses, when you go in for your doctor's visit, they do a pre screening and ask you mental health questions because they understand that the two coincide and work together. So even when it comes to, just understanding your body and understanding your mental capacity, right? Sometimes the reason why we don't take care of our mental is because, it's almost like a volcano. We can stuff and hold on to things for a long time, right? But at some point, it's going to become too much, and we're just going to blow. We're going to erupt. So I think that it's important to understand that before we get to that point of burnout, before we get to that point of exploding and bleeding all over everybody around us, let's take care of our mental health just like we do our physical health.
Love it. Man, I love it. We could go on and on about this. I would just say I'm not going to do the listeners a service if I continue to talk about awareness and mental health. I think they just need to reach out to you, and connect with Courageous Healing. So this podcast is about falling in love with practice. It's once you master those fundamentals, you got to fall in love with it. I can honestly tell in talking to you, you are falling in love with the practice. You're falling in love every single day with what you get to do. It's also about winning at the game of life. For Aaron and Janelle, what is the next phase? What does winning at the game of life, mean to you guys?
I think first and foremost, being good stewards of people. First, it's our marriage and our little ones, right? We have two beautiful children, our daughter Nova, who's 6, and our son Jace, who's 9. That's our first priority. We call that our first ministry. Everything we do in life is to win at that, right? To set our kids up to be able to win, and continue the legacy. We feel like our purpose, and we've had prophetic words and different things spoken over us, where our entire, we feel like our purpose or our kingdom mission is to empower individuals to be individuals who empower people to be the best versions of themselves, and we set out to do that in any way possible. I know you talk about relationships win, and we truly believe that if we can do authentic, organic relationships of substance, we will go. I mean, life is limitless because that's what it's all about. If you treat people well, people will treat you well, and we know that through a lot of the relationships that we've been able to garner over the years. It hasn't been about money, it hasn't been about status, it hasn't been about recognition. It's about doing relationship well. I didn't end up on this podcast because I saw people on the podcast and I came to you and asked. I said no. We met through a friend and we sat down, we talked, and through connection and just getting to know each other, it just happened, right?
It's
So I think
organic.
just organic. I think just doing that with people in life, you'll see yourself start to go where you're, on mission and where your purpose will take you. And I think that's what we set out to do every day. I think our call every day when I wake up and I pray is, God, what do you have for me today? What is it that I'm setting out to do today? And I honestly think even through sports, that was my thing. What is it you will have me do today? And whatever it is that you have me do today, whatever you put in front of me, I'm going to attack and do it with all my might. And I trust you in it.
This is why it's beautiful, because I asked you what winning looks like for you, and you just gave a seminar, a motivational talk, and a master's degree in sales 101. Listen to me right now. If you have customers, if you have a client list, if you have a database, what Aaron just said right now is so important. He said building relationships organically and helping other people is how you become successful.
Mhm.
Becoming successful is a byproduct. Becoming successful is an outcome. It's not the goal. The goal is not to be famous. The goal is not to be successful. The goal is to go help people, serve people at the highest level possible in the gifts that you have, right? So what is winning at the game of life? look like for Aaron and Janelle? You described that, but what about for courageous healing? What's on your radar right now? What are some things you guys are hoping to accomplish?
So currently we're located obviously here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and we're looking to be statewide within the next probably year or two. We're working on some opportunities in Indianapolis, as well as in South Bend. We're just kind of being patient and sustaining and making sure that things here and, the root, the foundation is sustainable. And then obviously making sure things are scalable. So we have those opportunities and those doors opening for us. So we're just kind of being patient and walking into those opportunities as we see fit. Along with that is just creating great experiences each and every day when clients walk into our facility that again honors them, glorifies them, and shows them that they belong and that they have a place that they can come and be heard, seen, and valued. And that's not only for our clients, but for our team and our staff and our therapists. We want people to understand that they get to come to Courageous Healing. They don't have to come to Courageous Healing,
Mm.
right? There's a difference. You get to come to work. You get to come to therapy. Oh, I don't want people looking at their calendars and saying, oh man, I got therapy today. No, I want people looking at their calendar and saying, yes, I get to go to therapy today, right? We have so many people that come in, and I'll use this as an example. We have a couple of therapists right now who are only seeing clients virtually, right? So
Mhm.
our therapists are not in the office. However, because of how our facility and the ambiance of our facility is set up, the clients who can be in their office, be at home, wherever they want to be, they still choose to come to our facility and sit in the office with a computer to see their therapist who's not there. To me, that just speaks to the experience as a whole. So I would say that's the ultimate goal of Courageous Healing. If we can just do that and make clients feel seen and heard, that's what we set out to do. When it comes to obviously funding being, and things like that, being a nonprofit, that's obviously important. But that to me comes through relationships. A lot of times when we walk into meetings with individuals who are potential funders, we never make an ask. I mean, it's hard. It's probably hard to believe. Obviously, we write grants and do things like that, but with a lot of our individual donors and corporations, we never make an ask. We go sit down, we meet with them, we allow them to get to know our hearts and who we are as people. We tell them what our needs may be if they ask, but then we let them place the value on it that they see fit. And we've gotten great outcomes that way. Because again, when you do relationship and people hear your heart, people will take care of you.
Th- I don't. Okay, I'm gonna speak something on you right now. I mean, I know you have a heart for mental health, but if I'm a nonprofit right now and I'm listening to this podcast, I'm thinking to myself, how can I get Coach Aaron to come and coach me up? Because I got to imagine most nonprofits start because people have a heart for a certain ministry. But what they maybe don't have is the organizational skills. So you're talking about people and systems are your fundamentals. And then you could speak to nonprofits. You should be speaking to salespeople. Anybody that has a database. What do? You build relationships. You don't ask for the business, you build relationships. You know what happens when you ask for business? It creates a barrier. Now our relationship becomes transactional. But we're teaching our sales team this right now, and we're going through this ourselves. My goal this year is to not talk about real estate. My goal is to talk about how can I make your day to day? How can I help you win? And when real estate comes up, I better be good enough to walk through the door and serve at the highest level. But my life today is not about real estate. It's about connecting, deepening relationships, and helping other people. What you just said you do, like we sit down, we don't ask, we build relationships. And you know what happens is you pray about it. And if it's on their heart to come alongside of you, now your organization is going to grow.
Yeah.
Man, I'm telling you, I'm learning. And if you want to add something to that, I think we just capped an amazing episode off by talking about how you're a nonprofit, how you have a heart for mental health, and how you run an organization so well that now you're expanding because you're creating an amazing experience and your systems are on point and your people are amazing.
Yeah, and really quickly, what I will say is the reason why that approach is important, or at least that worked for us, is because instead of creating, you may make an ask, and that may be a one-time gift that you get or a one-time donor. Whereas if we allow you to give because you truly believe in the mission or you truly believe in the work that's being done, that's a heart posture, right? You're not giving because someone asked or you feel obligated. You're giving because it's a heart posture and you believe in this work enough that you're willing to give your resources or investment to it. Because this is much bigger than Janelle and I, right? One day, Janelle and I, as a nonprofit, especially, right, when we transitioned from a for-profit to a nonprofit, we gave up ownership, right? So at some point, Janelle and I may not be the leaders, even though we co-founded it. We may not be the leaders of Courageous Healing, but just because we're not the leaders, that doesn't mean that we don't want it to thrive and we don't want the individuals who are giving to stop. No, we want you to give because you believe in the mission and vision of what Courageous Healing stands for. And that's not just Aaron and Janelle Lane. That is the work of Courageous Healing and that our entire team gets to do on a daily basis.
Wow. Well, I heard a lot of things, but I think what you're leaving me with right now is, there's a big buzz right now in personal growth and development, and it's all about mindset. It's getting pushed down our throats too much. But what's not getting pushed is heart set. How are you setting your heart? How are you setting your intentions when you go meet with the client, when you go meet with a donor, a funder? How are you setting your heart when you're talking to your team? Mindset's one thing. You got to have the right mindset. I'm not deflecting mindset. But what I'm intentionally saying is you better have the right heart set. And thank you so much for sharing. I got one last thing before we wrap up. The kids say, give this man his flowers, right? It's give him the accolades, give him the attention, give him the praise. And we believe relationships win. Aaron, who's somebody in your life that you want to send some virtual flowers to? Who's helped you get to where you are today that you want to give them a shout out?
Man, there are so many people who've come alongside me in my life. First and foremost, my beautiful wife, Janelle. I would be remiss without mentioning her. I am not where I am today without her and her accountability that she continually gives me, but also just her willingness to stick it out with all the costs she's had to pay to walk along in this journey with me, but as well as so many powerful men, Coach Russ Isaacs at Snyder, the late great Eugene Parker, rest his soul, who was a man of very few words, but when he spoke was very powerful. And he was a man that lived by example. So I watched him. I spent a lot of time in his home because me and his boys were really good friends and very close roommates in college. So I got to watch him up close and from a distance for many years. And just the way he lived was a great example of what family meant, what a relationship with God meant, and living out sports and business. A lot of what I lived out, Eugene lived out, from playing sports to becoming a lawyer to becoming a sports agent, and just doing it all with grace and doing it all with a purpose and a mission, but believing in God along the way.
That's fantastic. This has been a fun episode for me. I said on the beginning of this podcast, fast friends. I've known of you. I've known of your wife for a long time, and I recently got the chance to meet you. And from business to faith to family to all the things that are important, we see eye to eye on a lot of these. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you and your wife and this community. And who is somebody? The listeners, after listening to this episode, the listeners want to help you out. Who's somebody that you want to be introduced to? Who's somebody that the listeners can help you be introduced to, whether it's donors, funders, people that can help come alongside you and raise money and invest capital? Is it people that are struggling, with their mental health? Who are the people you want to be introduced to?
So it's interesting because at the mixer, we were asked that question, and I said all in. I'm an all in person. I want to meet any and everybody who's willing to journey with Courageous Healing. May that be potential clients who need access to therapy. May that be individual corporate donors who are willing to invest. I want to know everybody, because I know that if they're not a direct asset or benefit to us, somebody that we know may need their services. I had a young man ask me today if I had resources to help him get an internship in the field of electrical engineering, right? So I'm able, because of relationships, to then connect him with someone. So although they're not a direct benefit to me and what I need personally from Courageous Healing, I know someone that could benefit from a relationship that I may have. So I'm all in. I'm willing to meet and rub elbows with whoever is willing to meet with me.
That's fantastic. Well, I appreciate it. This has been another episode. Go ahead and like and follow this show. I'm at _Brad Noll _ and we just love pumping out great inspirational messages from our guests. Aaron, you were fantastic today. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a fantastic year, a season, and you are now an alumni of Student of the Game podcast. Thanks for being a guest today.
Indeed. Appreciate it. It was an honor. Thanks for having me.
All right. Remember, in the game of life, relationships win. Thanks for listening to Student of the Game podcast. Whatever game you are playing, I'm cheering for you. See you in the next class.